Pat Klish. I am the chair of the North Bay and Area Drug Strategy Committee. Well, it all started in October of 2013 when the street crime detectives approached me and said there was an issue of fentanyl being on the streets in North Bay, and was there anything that we could do to assist them because clients or addicts or whatever you want to refer to them as were approaching them saying that they had some of their addicts coming up to them saying that they had people that were dying from fentanyl that were on the street. This was really disturbing to me as an old emergency nurse because fentanyl was just used in hospitals, mostly in the operating room and the intensive care units. So I said, well, I would approach the chief of staff at the hospital as well as head of family practice to see what we could do. So that's what I did. And they were kind of appalled about that as well. So we set up a forum in October, and we knew that, I asked them first of all where they felt the fentanyl was coming. Was it coming in by black market, or was it being mostly by prescriptions? They said most of the fentanyl on the streets was by prescription being written by physicians. So we held a forum here at the police station in October where the pharmacists came, physicians came, and we went from there. But we knew we had to have a protocol in place for them to review. And that's where Mark Barnes, a pharmacist in Ottawa, had a small program going on, patch for patch, in his pharmacy. So he was kind enough to lend us his protocol, which we used as a draft. And that's where it all started. And a lot of the doctors couldn't come that day because they had another educational going on. So then the two detectives, we took them to a meeting at the hospital. They were able to tell these doctors what they actually were seeing on the streets. I think that's what actually sold physicians, because they couldn't believe what people were actually using fentanyl and what these detectives were actually seeing on the streets in North Bay. And they were very interested in signing this patch for patch protocol. That's where it all started. And so that started in October, and on December the 6th, 2013, we had a press conference right here in the boardroom where everyone signed off and said, let's implement it. The pharmacists were great to say, let's go for this. So that's where it all started. And we signed off on December 6, 2013, and implemented it not only in North Bay, but West Nipissing as well as Mattawa.
My name is Brad Rayholm. I am a detective constable with the Street Crime Unit for the North Bay Police Service. The Patch for Patch program is a program which requires a prescription holder of fentanyl to return them back to the pharmacy. Well, as a drug investigator from the city of North Bay, we noticed an increase of fentanyl abuse on the streets. So in 2012, when OxyContin came off the market and they created and replaced it with the tamper-proof OxyNeo, we noticed firsthand that there was an increase of fentanyl abuse. And the abuse seemed to be at the younger age level, so there was younger people that were abusing fentanyl. Fentanyl has always been abused in the city of North Bay, but it seems as of 2012, younger people, 19, 20-year-olds, were abusing fentanyl. We did some targeted enforcement on fentanyl through an undercover operation, and when the undercover operator was actually in a residence to purchase fentanyl, fentanyl was being passed out and passed around and smoked, and the age group was around 20 to 23 years old were the people that were smoking fentanyl. So that alarmed us. We recognized that we were hearing about it a lot more. We were seeing it a lot more in the drug enforcement efforts that we were doing. The informants, the people that we speak with on the streets, were speaking about fentanyl a lot more and at an alarming rate. The very, very basic idea of the program is why it is so successful. The fentanyl patch, once it's worn, we have now the ability to actually ask for it back. Because we can ask for it back, we could ensure that it's properly disposed of. We could also ensure that it's not sold illicitly or abused illicitly or illegally. Because there's such a high demand from fentanyl, it's very tempting for a person that receives a prescription from of fentanyl to actually sell it, to make some money from the sales of it. Sometimes it's actually given to a family member. So what asking for the patch does is it eliminates that. It stops that from happening. The fentanyl that we were experiencing from a drug enforcement standpoint was all prescription fentanyl that was being sold illegally. So it was legitimate prescription holders that were selling their fentanyl patches. Most of the fentanyl seizures we have been involved with have been in multiples of 10. And the reason why they're in multiples of 10 is because a prescription typically is 10. So when we make arrests for trafficking in fentanyl or possession for the purpose of trafficking, we are finding the fentanyl patches to come in multiplications of 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 patches at a time. The biggest improvement that we could have is a security feature that's adhered to the fentanyl patch to test it to see if it's actually a legitimate and a real fentanyl patch. So when the return comes to the pharmacist, we could ensure that it's actually the fentanyl patch that was handed out. What's very unique about fentanyl, it's actually the only prescribed narcotic that you can actually ask for back. When you take a oxycodone, you swallow it. You inject it if you're going to do it illegally, or you smoke it. Either way, the pill's consumed, it's gone. With fentanyl, you can actually ask for it back. So that's what's very unique about fentanyl. Probably the biggest concern with fentanyl is the fact that it kills people. The fact that it's accounted for so many deaths across the province. It's accounted for so many deaths within our community. We have, in North Bay, we are only 50,000 people. We don't go to these funerals and we don't not recognize people. These are sometimes relatives of ours, people that we went to high school with, people that we grew up with. Fentanyl has killed more people in North Bay than car accidents. It's killed more people than homicides. It's killed more people than drinking and driving. It's killed more people than oxycodone. It's killed more people than cocaine. It's killed more people than anything. So we have to stop that. You have to stop that. Something that's very scary about fentanyl too is we are often asked how many people have died. Like, how many people has your community lost? If we could, those people are important to us, but if we could understand that something that's a little bit more important than that is the fact that we often get calls from parents or family members that talk about a family member that's abusing fentanyl. Sometimes that family member is to a point with their family's addiction, with the state of their addiction, that they are actually waiting for that phone call to happen. We often hear, you know, when the police show up at my house, I'm always waiting for the police to show up at my house, or I'm always waiting for that phone call to come in about my son. There are some people, because the addiction is so bad and it is such a negative impact on their family, that they're actually hoping that it comes, that they actually want it to happen sooner rather than later. So it is such a drug, and it consumes a family or a person so much that family members are actually sitting back and hoping that it comes sooner than later because of the suffering that's involved.
Tom Robertson, Detective Constable with the City Police in North Bay, Ontario. The Patch for Patch program basically started in the summer of 2013. My partner and I were on duty, pulled over to the side of the road when a local drug user approached our vehicle, rapped on my window. I rolled down the window, and the first thing and the only thing he said to me was, "You guys got to do something about that fentanyl because it's killing all my friends." So from there, we went out on the internet. We located a pharmacist in Ottawa. His name's Mark Barnes. He had implemented a Patch for Patch program of his own in his pharmacy in Ottawa. He was able to provide me with some documentation of how he did it. With that, we approached the Drug Strategy Committee in North Bay, spoke with Pat Cleash, and we came up with this Patch for Patch program, which rolled out in December of 2013. Fentanyl patches are basically non-existent in North Bay, from North Bay. We still have patches that come from outside of our community, from communities that do not have a Patch for Patch program initiative in place now. So anything that we do have in North Bay is coming from other communities. That's why we need this to become a province-wide initiative, and all of Canada should, this should be something that goes Canada-wide. In 2012, when the oxycodone was taken off the market, people turned to fentanyl as a replacement. The issue with fentanyl, when somebody was abusing an oxy, let's say an 80 milligram oxy pill, they knew exactly what they were getting when they took that pill. With fentanyl, when you take a fentanyl patch, people aren't smoking one full patch at a time. They're taking pieces of the patch and they're smoking it. The problem with fentanyl is it's not evenly distributed on the patch. So all the medication could be on one corner, and when you cut that one corner off and you buy that one corner and you smoke that entire patch, you're getting a full dose and you don't even know it. And fentanyl attacks the respiratory system, causing you to stop breathing and die. And the other problem is people that haven't built up a high tolerance to opiates, fentanyl is so strong that the first time they use it, it could be the end of